Hi, I'm Paul Edwards. I'm an independently published horror author, and tonight I'm watching Mystery of the Wax Museum, a film that was a lost movie for 40 years, but that we now have back. In 1933, Lionel Atwill and Fay Wray starred in Mystery of the Wax Museum. The basic premise of this movie was that there was this brilliant sculptor, played by Lionel Atwill, who ran a wax museum years ago. And it wasn't very profitable, so his crooked business partner decided to torch the place for the insurance money. Something went wrong, because it's a horror movie, and Lionel Atwill's character was trapped in the inferno of the burning wax museum. Now it's the present day. Lionel Atwill's character is now confined to a wheelchair, and he has opened a new wax museum here in the United States. And once again, his wax figures are masterpieces. They're very realistic looking. But this time, he did not sculpt them by hand. He has a crew of assistants who help him in his work. Strangely, bodies have been disappearing from the city morgue. And certain prominent people around town, an actress, a judge, have either died or disappeared. Well, the audience understands immediately what is really going on here. But for some reason, the characters are not able to piece together what connection there is between disappearing people and corpses from the morgue and these extremely realistic looking wax figures in the new wax museum. The only person who has a glimmer of an idea of what might really be going on is an investigative reporter. Now, I told you that Fay Wray had the female lead in this. She was not the investigative reporter, though. She was basically a damsel in distress in this movie. Glenda Powell had the much better role of the investigative journalist, and she has a wisecracking, smart-mouthed, mile-a-minute banter that just steals the show. She completely steals the spotlight from Fay Wray in this film. And so Glenda Powell's character is investigating the connection between the disappearances and the new wax museum. And it soon becomes clear that there is a ghoulish phantom lurking in and around the wax museum and also around the city morgue. And if you look over my shoulder, you'll see Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, issue 113 from 1975. And painted on the cover is the Mystery of the Wax Museum's mysterious prowler with a distorted, destroyed face. It's a very creepy image. So now I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, but let's say that the ending of this film alone is worth watching the entire movie, even if the entire movie itself wasn't great, which it is great. But the ending was a shocking revelation to audiences of the time. And this movie scared the heck out of people. Really, I think there are two reasons that Mystery of the Wax Museum scared audiences so much. One is, you got to remember, this is 1933. This is pretty gruesome material for a story. That corpses are, I'm sure you can figure out, corpses are being used and covered in wax to be the new statues in the wax museum. But also there's another reason I think this film scares people, even today. There is a phobia of lifelike human figures. And I'm going to be careful saying this word because if I blow it, I'm going to have to start recording this video all over again. So, get ready. Automatonophobia. Automatonophobia is the fear of things like mannequins, dummies, even scarecrows, anything that resembles a human being but is an artifice, is something constructed. And some people are really affected by a wax museum, even if it's not the House of Horrors part of a wax museum, just the fact that it's wax figures of anyone, historical figures or whoever. Some people just respond very poorly to it. It gives them the creeps. And if you happen to have automatonophobia, there, I've said it a few times for you now, then you definitely would be creeped out by Mystery of the Wax Museum. So this film was pretty popular in the United States. It was even bigger in Europe. So why did it become a lost film? Well, this was one of the last movies made with a sort of an early color processing called two-color Technicolor. And what happened was that you would take red and green and combine them to create hues on the recorded image. And this was how you got color films in the early days. This actually was the final two-color Technicolor film to be released in a theater. So as time went on, movie theaters did not keep up with this two-color Technicolor process because there was no financial reason for them to. New movies were not being made with this process anymore. So theaters abandoned it, and therefore there was no showing of this film, and it quickly became a lost movie. And it remained lost for 40 years. Now, during that time, all hope was not lost. The film was remade because they still had the script and everything, and people still remembered it. They remade this film in 1953 under the title House of Wax. And the Lionel Atwill role as the brilliant sculptor was played by Vincent Price. Now, in 1953, Vincent Price already was an established movie star. He had even been in some horror movies already. But House of Wax was the film that changed Vincent Price from being a movie star to being the image we see of Vincent Price now, which is a horror megastar character actor. And Vincent Price basically became typecast into horror with House of Wax, and it shaped his entire career from there. House of Wax was a huge hit, much bigger hit than Mystery of the Wax Museum had been. House of Wax was, for one thing, it was a big budget production. The set designs were, increased to the max. It was filmed in 3D, which was a movie fad that had actually come and was going out by 1953. But House of Wax was so popular that it succeeded with the 3D format. And so for fans who were missing out on seeing Mystery of the Wax Museum, basically House of Wax held that position. It held the position filling that void that was left by this lost film. Luckily, lost films do not always stay lost forever. In the early 1970s, a usable, complete print of Mystery of the Wax Museum, was found and restored to a point where it was viewable. It wasn't great. It wasn't what we have now, but it was a complete copy of the film that at least could be watched and you could see what was happening. And this film was presented in 1972 in Grauman's Chinese Theater to huge positive reception from people who had seen this film as kids And now we're amazed that it had been found after all these years, and it went over big. Since that time, additional elements of the film have been found and compiled together to make the composite that we have now. So we have a more complete version of Mystery of the Wax Museum. It's still not exactly the same as you would have seen in the theaters in 1933, but it's probably the closest we'll ever get. And it's a complete film. You can see everything that happened, and it's perfectly watchable. It's just that the colors are slightly different than what would have shown on the screen back then. But for the casual viewer, it's as if you had the complete film again. Now, the fact that lost films can be found again is something I hang a lot of hope on, because I really, really would like, within my lifetime, for somebody somewhere to find London After Midnight, the lost Lon Chaney Sr. vampire film. Never say never. It can happen. If you're a fan of classic Doctor Who, you probably know that they have found many previously lost Doctor Who episodes, with somebody having stored a copy somewhere in a closet, and it's only found decades after the fact. And now we have it again. So I still carry the hope that we will someday get London After Midnight back, like we got Mystery of the Wax Museum back. Now, as I said, Mystery of the Wax Museum was remade in 1953 as House of Wax. It also was remade much more loosely in a 1969 drive-in horror movie starring Cameron Mitchell called Nightmare in Wax. And it was, I can't even say remade, it was revived as a concept in House of Wax in the early 2000s, starring Paris Hilton in a sort of a slasher movie version of just the most basic premise of, it was called House of Wax, but it had nothing to do with the brilliant sculptor opening the new wax museum in town. It wasn't anything like that. It was just the idea that somebody was coating human beings in wax, and that was about all the similarity you had. So there you have it. And even that remake, if you can call it a remake, was 20 years ago. So I say the time is ripe for a new version of Mystery of the Wax Museum. I think audiences today would find it just as creepy, because automatanophobia is still a real thing, and people are going to be freaked out if they do remake this picture. But just the fact that we have back the 1933 Mystery of the Wax Museum is something we really should appreciate, because all through the 1950s, 1960s, even into the beginning of the 1970s, monster fans and horror fans would have loved to have been us, to have Mystery of the Wax Museum at our fingertips and to be able to watch this lost horror masterpiece anytime we want. If I've interested you in the film, you can easily find it online. It's also available in DVD, Blu-ray. It's available, the same as any other old horror movie would be now. So that's very good news for us. Listen, if you are a fan of old-time horror films, vintage monster movies, then you really would be interested in my book series, the Mourner's Woods books. They're available on Amazon.com. I have 6 of them in publication so far. I'm working on the next one already. They have different monsters in different books. They're each freestanding stories, so you can start with any of the books that you want. They don't have to be read in any particular order. And I really try to recapture the vibe and feel of vintage horror in a contemporary setting. So they're 99 cents for an ebook, $9.99 paperback, and they're also available in audiobook at Amazon.com. Thanks for spending some time with me talking about this previously lost horror classic, Mystery of the Wax Museum. And I'll talk to you the next time that we're going to watch a scary movie.